Because he's telling them that they should believe in him because God sent him, God put his seal on him, and that he came from God. So they need to believe. That's one way they're asking how they can work for God, and that's one thing. That's what they can do is believe in him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, they were focusing on works. If you see how they asked the question is, what can we do? That's an action.
Right.
That we may work the works of God. So they're thinking about it as an action. What can we do? Right? So they're thinking that, okay, it's all about works. And that's kind of how the Pharisees, the Sadducees, that's how they kind of operated. That's how they were thinking, right? What can we do, right, to get into heaven? And Jesus is saying that it's not about what you do. First, he says that the first and foremost thing is your heart. You have to trust and believe, right? And everything else will fall in place, right? If we want to do the work of God, it has to begin with trusting in Jesus, right? A parent does not only want their child to be obedient. A parent wants their child to have a relationship of trust and love. Okay, because that's the most important thing. Because when a child has, when you build that relationship with your children, then they're gonna want to be obedient. They're gonna want to make you proud by doing what you ask them. Okay, when I'm as a teacher, when I'm in my class and I'm working with students, one of the most important things for me to do is build positive relationships, because I know that when I build positive relationships, my students will do anything that I ask them. And then I don't have to focus on classroom management. I can focus on just teaching and them learning. So Jesus is saying here, the most important thing is not your works. The most important thing is your heart. Your heart has to be right. And in order for your heart to be right, you have to trust and believe in Jesus. When you trust and believe in Jesus, then that relationship can start to be built. And once you build that relationship and you have that relationship and you're walking with the Lord, then you're going to want to be obedient. You're going to want to do the things that Jesus, you're going to want to live a life that's pleasing to the Lord. I think a young lady, and by the way, those of you listeners, one of the young ladies in this meeting gave an interview where she shared a testimony, and in that testimony, she talks about how when she first encountered Jesus, it was a process. First, she had to trust and believe, and then as she began to trust in the Lord, little by little, she started to be obedient because she wanted to please the Lord. She wanted to do the things that please God. And so it's a process, and it has to start first with believing and trusting in Jesus and in his works, in the work that he did on the cross for us.
Where I go to church at on Sunday, we talk about trust and obey a lot. It's not just that you have to trust the Lord, but you have to obey, what he says or what God says. Like even back in the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments, you still have to obey those.
Yes, and I'm not saying what I'm saying is not that we don't. I'm not trying to say that we don't need to obey God. What I'm saying is that it has to start first with trusting. If you don't trust and you believe that Jesus is Lord, that he's the Son of God, and that he died on the cross for our sins, and that he rose on the Sabbath on the third day and seated at the right hand of God the Father, and all authority has been given unto him, and that he's going to come one day to take us home. If we don't believe in that, then how are we going to be obedient? How are we going to obey someone we don't believe in?
Right.
Jesus is not saying that you don't obey. He's just saying that the first and foremost command is believing and trusting in Jesus.
Does he say the word? Does he say believing and trusting, or the first one was just believe? Because at least for me, even the trusting was a process. How do I know I can trust somebody? Have I ever seen you come through? So it's a process, and I'm sure it's like that for many people. How can I trust this person, if I don't know him? So I think the first step is believing. period. It starts there. That's the initial. I think trusting, I think obeying, and I think everything else comes from there. You have to believe that he is the Son of God. When you know and when you believe truly in your heart that he is the Son of God, that he did die on the cross, that he did rise up again, that he did come to save us, then that's when in our hearts we start, our hearts start to get molded. It starts to get transformed. It starts to want to desire his truth and to understand why. And then trust comes with it, and obeying usually tends to come last. For some people it's immediate, but everybody is different. But it's a process. But I definitely think it all starts with believing. That's step number one. You have to believe. You have to believe.
I agree.
On a God.
Yeah, I agree. The belief is comes first, and then
everything else follows.
But yeah, no, by no means am I saying that we don't have to obey.
Right.
It's just that there's a process that has to that Jesus is trying
develop
to get us to see. So,
I agree with that. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a while,
Yeah.
It's just like when you develop like a relationship with another person, it's the same thing. You got to be able to trust that person.
Right. And that doesn't come right instantly, it takes time.
To all our loyal viewers, if you would like to be part of our Bible studies, please drop a comment and we will reach out to you. Have a blessed day.